Hi, I'm Steve Doherty. I'm out at one of my favorite painting locations, Rockwood Hall, which is a state park near Tarrytown, New York, and not too far from where I live. I've come here in part because it's my favorite location and because it offers one of the best views of the Hudson River from a high elevation. One of the sort of challenges in living in relatively close to New York City is that most of the land that offers great vistas is privately owned. The residents don't want anybody parking on the street. They don't want anybody painting along their roads. So the state parks offer a really great alternative to these private spots. I've been doing plein air painting or outdoor painting now for about 16, 17 years. I was introduced to it by a good friend of mine, Tom Beekner, because for people who have full-time jobs or family commitments, it's a handy way of making the best use of 2 to 3 hours on a weekend or in an evening or when you're traveling. And you can come up with satisfactory paintings, in fact, better than satisfactory paintings, in a relatively short period of time, say 2 to 3 hours. So what I've started to do here is to set up a pochade box, which means, you know, the artists like terms that are either French or Italian, this one being French. It's just a portable easel. This one is made by Gorilla Paint Box out of Colorado. I've put an 11 by 14 panel on it. It's a gesso board made by a company called Ampersand out of Austin, Texas. I like the gesso board because it's a ready-made surface. I don't have to prepare my own. It's also a smooth surface as opposed to having a canvas layer on it, which brings in a texture that I don't particularly like. I'm working with a combination of oil paints and some relatively new alkyd colors made by Gamblin that are called Fast Matte, F-A-S-T-M-A-T-T-E. The company recently introduced these paints. They are an alkyd-based paint, which means that they're compatible with oils, but they dry very quickly. And when you're working on location, that can be a real advantage. For one thing, because it sets up the painting surface rather quickly, you can build up layers of paint without the oil colors slipping around. You can also pack up your paintings and take them because they'll be dry within 24 to 36 hours, or at least dry enough that you can transport them. I also work with a wind gel alkyd medium that's made by Winsor Newton. There are a lot of other products like these that are made specifically for outdoor painting, in that they are portable, lightweight, versatile, dry quickly, save you a lot of time and trouble, and allow you to accomplish a lot on location. I'm going to be working with probably 2 brushes, one of which is a filbert-shaped bristle brush, and the other is a synthetic hair, soft hair, round brush. I find that both of those can be used to create a variety of brush strokes, to blend the paints, to add detail, to accomplish a lot. Again, you're looking for efficiency when you're working on location because you just don't have the time or the facility to carry a lot of materials to keep them all separated. So these work well for me. Most of my colors are fairly opaque colors as opposed to being transparent, although I do have one color that's transparent, a transparent red oxide. All the rest are opaque, and again, the reason being that they can build up the surface pretty quickly, whereas the transparent colors would take a little bit longer to reach that kind of thickness that I want. So I've chosen a location overlooking the Hudson River. I've used a kind of purplish gray color to draw the outlines of the shapes, thinking about the kind of compositional flow of lines and shapes and spaces. And now I'll begin to work, blocking in the large shapes, working primarily from the background to the foreground and from the top of the panel to the bottom of the panel. I used a combination of titanium white, Winsor blue, and French ultramarine blue to draw the outline. Added a little bit of alizarin crimson and a little bit of transparent red oxide to that cloud mixture, or the sky mixture, in order to make this gray for the shadow sides of the clouds, and I painted that in. Then I added a combination of titanium white, yellow ochre, and a touch of transparent red oxide to create a warm white color. And then I used this number 6 round brush, a Utrecht Sablite brush, to gently blend all of these colors together. I will then go back and restate the blue sky color around the shapes and kind of manipulate it back and forth until I get what I think is a fairly convincing pattern of clouds in the sky. So you'll see at this point, at least, I'm just sort of blending things with the expectation that the alkyd paints and the alkyd medium will cause it to set up quickly enough that then I can go back later and add more white to the highlights in the clouds, a little bit more deep blue to the sky pattern, maybe a little richer purplish color along the bottom edges of the clouds, so that they begin to have that kind of three-dimensional floating ethereal kind of atmospheric effect. Next, I want to just block in the big green shapes, since they really dominate the whole composition. And I want to get a sense of where I'm going with this. So I've just masked them in a very rough way, paying some attention to the relative value and temperature. For example, the greens in here along the edge are darker and cooler. The mountain shapes in the back have to be much lighter in value, and following what's called the prismatic palette. As things get deeper into space, they become less contrasty, slightly bluer, maybe a little bit purple. As they come forward, they get darker in value. They have more yellow and red in them. So I'm using that knowledge to kind of create a sense of space. I also like the fact that as I'm looking at the landscape, all of this area is pretty much in shadow, and then the light hits in here, and then the light takes you back into space. And using that will help me create a sense of foreground and distance. It'll take the interest off of this great big shape and project it back into the distance. These dark trees over here that I want to appear as if they're in shadow, I've made the greens with a combination of ivory black and cadmium yellow medium. These greens, which I want to have more purple and bluish casts to them, I've mixed with Winsor blue and yellow. These trees, which I want to keep lighter in value and slightly different in coloration, I've added some transparent red oxide to the green mixtures. Now I'm going to go in with the smaller brush and darken the areas here, put some highlights on the rocks, and start to create the sense of distance and depth in the background mountains.